Hey, welcome in.
Welcome to the Arrowhead Addict podcast.
We are here coming to you live.
Let me tell you, the dopamine, it's flowing.
I am damn excited. Damn excited.
That's a terrible drum roll.
Oh! Boy, how you doing, man? Patrick.
Will, Sterling.
Yeah.
Super Bowl champion, two-time Pro Bowler, and Trent Green. Trent Green, how you doing?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
Oh, he picked it up! He picked it up! He's gonna score!
And we'll see you next week. But until then, as always, go Chiefs.
Welcome into the Arrowhead Addict podcast. I am Sterling Holmes. This is Josh Brisco. Follow him on the X at JB Brisco. He's got a great mustache right now. He's looking outstanding. I am Sterling Holmes. I have a smattering of a mustache. You can follow me on the X at HomestretchKC. Mustache will get stronger. It is for my father-in-law's 70th birthday party coming up. Heading to California where they shot Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So I figured I need to probably grow this bad boy out. I didn't give myself very much time. I think I still have about like a week or so left, so that, my follicles in my above my lip, they're pretty strong. So we're hoping about a week or so this thing gets lush. Brisco, we're going to talk all about the draft, baby.
2026 mock draft start now. Drop your favorite picks in the chat. What position group should we be looking for?
And that's exactly what I was talking about. This is the 2026 mock draft episode. No, I'm kidding. I'm just fronting with you.
God, no.
I'm being facetious. That would suck so much. No, we finally aren't doing a mock draft. We are breaking down this draft. And I would always like to point out, when we go through this draft, I like doing this on the forefront. I'll probably make 3 other comments during it. When we go through this draft, we're giving our thoughts, yes, we know, before they've played an actual snap. We understand that, but it's very boring to say, okay, we will wait and see what they do. We know that's not what our job is, though. Our job is to try and sift through and how we think they're going to fit on this particular team. So I know they've not played a snap yet, but Brisco, how are you?
I'm excellent. And look, we know this, you know this, you and Richard and I were, as we have our moments before the show, we can chat and everything. I came in pretty hot about your mustache today. Frankly, I think it just came from a place where I didn't know if you were going to be bringing mustache heat post draft. I did this with the KCSN draft coverage and raising money for this internship in honor of Therese Paylor, all of that. One of the incentives in many years has been mustache time. And I knew I was showing up to that coverage with every intent. In fact, I brought let's say, I brought the murder weapon in this instance. It was Josh's beard trimmer in the distillery on the third day of the draft, right? That was how that game of Clue went. So I knew what I was going to be bringing mustache heat-wise into today's show. Frankly, I'm glad to see that we're both in that place. We didn't coordinate this together. This was just two mustache brothers getting to the right follically gifted place at the right time of year, and I think it's going to give me the energy I need to talk about a really fun, pretty interesting draft class.
Yeah, a lot to get into, so we'd appreciate it if you would like and subscribe. We'll do it at the front this time. We're going to get crazy with it. It's Tuesday.
Do it.
Like, subscribe, give us a 5-star review. We would really appreciate it. I like reading those. It always makes me happy when I see a nice review. It does make my day when I see something like someone from England saying this is who I interact with, or someone saying Sterling's a beast. He should be on ESPN. Thank you. That was very kind. That was so nice. I don't know why that one stood out. Just did.
I like that your mom leaves reviews. I think
she's
cool.
Very sweet. It's actually your mom, Brisco.
Nice. Good.
It was MB. No, but we do. It means a lot when we see nice reviews. Again, I know sometimes there'll be stuff to work on, and I actually like when people leave constructive criticism, as long as it still comes with a 5-star review.
Yeah,
that's fine. That's fine. I want to end the show today.
We just got started.
It's a teaser for people to stick around. If you want to hear about my birthday, turning 31, yes, and about me listening to music and going to a concert where I was shocked that a 91-year-old was singing about all a girl needs to bring is a G-string and a toothbrush. Yes, that was a song. And yes, the man was 91. Stick to the end of the show. And Brisco, remind me.
Man, I certainly will remind you. It's going to be very hard for me to focus through what was going to be a bunch of serious draft takes, but I'm going to do my best.
Yeah. All right, let's get into it. We talked about Josh Simmons already, but let's talk about Josh Simmons even more so, because I think my thoughts are fairly well known on this, where it's not Josh Simmons necessarily. It's the tackle position for Kansas City and their inability to draft and develop tackles. I know people will say, well, Sterling, what do you want them to do? I want them to do what they did with Orlando Brown Jr. I want them to do with what I think they're trying to do with Jalen Moore. I actually think that's the best methodology currently for KC right now. And Jalen Moore is even more of an unknown. I think the Chiefs cannot develop tackles, so you have to bring in a proven commodity because we've not seen them develop or get better here in KC. That's more or less where I'm at. Again, for all the people that say, well, he was a top 10 player before the patellar injury. Yeah, well, 45% of players who have that injury don't ever play another snap of football. I will also point out the Chiefs medical staff knows way more than I do. They are way better than what I am and what I do. So I trust the Chiefs medical staff. End of the day, I am very questionable on this pick. Again, with the injury, with the position, with my thoughts overall on everything. I will also point out I did like Josh Simmons over Connerly. So there's that going for me. The Chiefs able to trade back, get a fifth. I like at least the thought process going through it, even if I disagree with the particular thought process in regards to the position. Brisco, your thoughts on Josh Simmons?
I think we'll overlap in some ways, but it's kind of interesting hearing you frame it that way. When I think my hunch, and this also gets me to a little bit of a more positive headspace, you said it's not Josh Simmons, it's the tackle position. I think my take might be, it's not the tackle position, it's Josh Simmons. Explaining why I actually do like where this ended up. And it's like, I totally understand where your posture is here. We talked about this for like the last month. You know, we've kind of beaten this to death. And I had said time and time again, I really didn't think the Chiefs would invest anything serious in the offensive line in this draft, because I thought Josh Simmons would ultimately have somebody bite in the late 20s. He was always sort of the asterisk on where I was expecting him to go on the O-line. And ultimately, I feel okay about that, even though they obviously took a tackle at 32 overall, which, by the way, I know you and I are on the same page here. A delightful process to add a fifth-round pick to just sell 31 and scoot back and still get your guy. That was maybe the best thing that Brett Veach did in this draft, because it's just like, it's just cashing in a chip. It really just glad that happened. And it ended up leading to a player who I think is going to matter for this team too. But ultimately, the reason that I think this does make sense is I understand the development concerns. And I would say with even more confidence, the Chiefs haven't done a very good job of elevating their tackles. I think that could even include the guys who you kind of look to as being the better attempts in the past. Orlando Brown Jr. was good. I don't know that he was better in Kansas City than he was before he got here. Obviously, like Mitchell Schwartz was a kind of like fringe perennial top of the league guy in Cleveland, and then he was still that in Kansas City. Eric Fisher got better here, but Eric Fisher got better here after Mitch Schwartz got here, right? Like, there's a little overlap and all that. So, and you know, you get your Donovan Smith, a veteran who was a fully formed player. So I think there are questions about what the Chiefs can do developing left tackles. I think Josh Simmons is fascinating because his upside is higher than you're usually going to see at 32. Now, I understand completely why he was available at 32, and it's the injury. And it is an injury that has a chance that he will never be the player he was at Ohio State again. I understand that. Here's my bit of rationalization that has really gotten me through the entire Josh Simmons conversation, and it's why I haven't lost a lick of sleep there. In 2020, the Chiefs had a, quote, risky first-round pick, taking Clyde Edwards-Helaire, because the risk was this guy is going to be a rare difference maker to justify that kind of investment at the position. He's going to stay healthy, and it's going to translate to the NFL level. Get way, way, way more recent. Felix Anudike-Uzomah was a risk because it was, hey, let's take this really young high upside player who just kind of, we've seen him rise even beyond expectations already through, you know, where he started in high school to being a first round pick ultimately with the selection that we're going to use on him. Well, we got to bet now on the risk that this very young player is going to continue to develop and get anything near those heights. And he basically redshirted his first year like Josh Simmons is probably going to do in his first year. Xavier Worthy was a risky first-round pick because he got drafted at 170-something pounds. And I'm saying something because I'm not sure it's more than the 170 pounds by the time that pick actually came in. So when you're really, I would say, picking outside of the top 12 to 15, you're going to have serious questions and serious warts. And really, I think most years, everybody's got serious questions or serious warts. Abdul Carter is coming off of a serious injury. Travis Hunter is selling himself on a bill of goods that no one's ever done before. And those are the two absolutely elite prospects everyone agrees on. So all of that to say, I'm glad that they invested in a player with Josh Simmons' upside at the position that he plays. Andy Reid said, after the pick that he used the phrase true left tackle. Of those guys who the Chiefs, to your point, Sterling, have not gotten the most out of those guys, I don't know if any of them were ever, quote, true left tackles. I think that's what makes the risk here worth it.
By the way, it's because I also really enjoy what the Chiefs did in the following draft picks that make this, for me, at least way more palatable again. I don't need to get into my thoughts again on the Chiefs' inability to develop left tackles and why I think they just need basically veterans only. Why it's not necessarily the best method, but I think it might be the best method for the Chiefs. A couple comments I want to get into. Jeremiah Sorensen from Denmark. Hello,
wow,
Denmark.
Denmark, let's go.
Said Josh repping another Chiefs YouTube jacket is a choice. Doesn't AA have merch? It's okay. We're friendly. We're okay with this.
I have always gotten that. I've always gotten that vibe. Richard always very kindly throws the chat over to KCSN and the link to the chat in the chat as we're wrapping up here because I'm on over there at 4:30. And look, this is a fresh piece of KCSN swag for draft weekend that I got. Look, if AA wants to throw like a hoodie my way or something, Sterling, you know me, I would love.
Yeah, I don't know what he would love. Yeah, he would love something, but his mic cut out. All I know is my wife stole my Arrowhead Addict hoodie, which is that's how you know it's a good hoodie. When your wife steals your hoodie, you know it's a good hoodie. KC Tico says Costa Rica checking in. Shout out Costa Rica. Lauren Shanks, a couple fifth-year options picked up today. Yeah, a couple fifth years in Trent McDuffie and George Karlaftis. I was actually laughing. I tweeted this morning about like 9:30ish or so, or no, maybe it's 10:30. I was like, hey, this is weird. Looks like the Chiefs still haven't made the decision on the fifth-year option on Karlaftis or Trent McDuffie. So I'm sitting here going, there's a long-term extension in the works, but I tweeted out about 10:30 a.m. 10 minutes later, it comes out, Chiefs have come to an agreement on a fifth-year or picking up the fifth-year option on McDuffie and Karlaftis. I like to think that was me. Maybe I should do that with Trey Smith. Maybe like, hey, Trey Smith still hasn't figured out if it's the franchise tag or a long-term contract. Maybe then, all of a sudden, maybe that's what I need. Maybe that's what the team needs. A little pressure from me. I'm, of course, being facetious. I have no power. Alan, has Shedeur Sanders been selected yet? Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Talk.
Are we back? Check.
Yeah, we're back.
I didn't cut out like it lost power, but nothing. I didn't move. I was about to give the world the great idea of just, I think like some Tuesdays with Sterling merch is really what we need. That's all I was going to say. It's like, or maybe it just says Tuesdays with Sterling and there's like a mustache over it.
I like this. I don't know who would wear it besides me and you.
This is the other real perk of this, Sterling. We only need to make two of them.
We have two people bought them. Who were they? It was Sterling and Brisco. Wow. Nice. And then this is from Sam. Before we get into the next
I wanted to answer this question. Okay, good.
Are we sure Josh Simmons is sitting this year? Andy says he's, quote, ready to go by training camp. Also got to wonder if Juwan Taylor could lose his job to either Josh Simmons or the guy we got from the 49ers. Well, I think Jalen Moore is pretty much pinned in at left tackle starting. I think Juwan Taylor's pretty much pinned in. As much as I hate the contract, I said it from the get-go. I don't think Juwan Taylor's losing his job. Like, I still think he is, if you want to go down the list of right tackles, he's average. Like, it's just the contract that makes it so gross. But I will also point out, Brett Veach somewhat pumped the brakes a little bit on that talk.
Andy sounded a little more optimistic than Veach did, right?
Yeah, Andy seemed like, oh, yeah, he's good. He's good. And then Brett Veach was like, yeah, well, we'll see. We don't want to rush him. We don't want to push him. We don't. So
the quote of like ready to go there, I do think is interesting, where I don't think, I would be pretty surprised if he's a full participant, team activities, day one of training camp, right? I think what Andy's probably saying there is that he's going to be involved in everything, and maybe he's optimistic. And he said it's a 9-month recovery in his book. Here's the one, I to Sam's point, I want to sprinkle just a little bit of keep this in mind dust. A lot of differences here. But Trey Smith was not supposed to be a starter as a rookie. Creed Humphrey really was. They drafted him in the midst of the rotating between who were the two the 2 1-year deal centers that were rotating through. One of them ended up back again. Austin Blythe. There's another Austin that I'm blanking on.
Austin Ryder.
Austin Ryder and Austin Blythe. I had an A name and I couldn't land it. Well, I know I'm getting old. I'm forgetting the names of Pokemon and those two Chiefs.
Yeah, dude, your mic absolutely hates you, bro. Yeah, I know you can hear me. It's because your mic is 2 scoops of ass. Speaking of 2 scoops of ass, check out what was posted in the YouTube. Yeah, look at those shirts. There's shirts and hoodies. The hoodie is fire. I forgot Richard made a Sterlingism and threw it on a shirt. The 2 scoops of ass shirt. Can't imagine we've sold many of these, but I feel like these should be selling like hotcakes or ass cakes. I guess just cake, because that's another name for it. All right.
I think I'm back. I don't.
Fisher Price Mike.
Anything.
Yo, you're getting cooked in the chat. Joshua, Fisher Price Mike. Get his ass, Joshua. On Joshua crime.
I've been using these mics forever. Listen, I lost power. I'm on skates right now. Like I am not touching anything. The cord just wraps around. Nothing weird happened. Or I got loose ports in my computer or what? If it happens again, I'm going to start crawling under the desk.
So, you said you didn't touch anything. Oh, so it was like Kingsley Suamataia trying to touch an edge rusher. He didn't touch anything.
Sterling, unlike the Chiefs, though, I have not given up on this mic after 2 mistakes.
That's also my other question. We'll go on. But like Eric Fisher wasn't very good to start his career in Kansas City. Would they have just given up on him? Like, I know it's a lot different. That was the first overall draft pick. The Chiefs weren't good then. I'm saying you drafted Eric Fisher at 31, 32. At this point, he would have struggled out of the gate the same way he struggled in Kansas City. The Chiefs would have probably moved on from him after a year as well.
It's interesting to think about in the context of like you have Patrick Mahomes and you're a Super Bowl contender, because the leash gets a lot shorter and it means you've got to be even quicker at developing those guys. Yeah.
So my point is kind of, either develop them or get the veteran if you're not going to worry about it.
If Kingsley's your actual Joe Tooney replacement, then I guess I'll just forgive him. We'll see.
All right. Omarr Norman-Lott, defensive tackle from Tennessee. I really, really enjoyed this pick.
Oh, really?
Well, enjoyed
You're the first one. I'm not even being facetious. Like
I loved the player. It was a little high for me, I guess. If you want to say like love this pick, if you want to go that route, okay, I get it. Sterling, you love him at 63. I don't know, but when I break down the rest of the draft, I go, I don't really care where he was drafted. If they have buckets of, hey, we have 4 wide receivers we really like, we have like 4 corners we really like, but we only have 1 more guy in our bucket at defensive tackle, and if he's gone, we're not going to leave with a guy who we think can make an impact on the defense. So let's maybe reach a little bit here for Norman-Lott, and we're still going to end up with, oh my gosh, look at all these guys that fell that were value picks for KC, right? So I understand from that thought process if he was the last guy in your bucket of D tackles. I really like Norman-Lott. Like, I get that he's a sub-package player at Tennessee. I understand he's probably not going to play every single down, but he's 6'1" with long arms, which is phenomenal for leverage. You have a guy who's a really good pass rusher. You have a guy who can put alongside Chris Jones and finally get some juice in the middle. I do have some questions about who's going to be the run stopper on first and second down. I like Mike Pennell, but not every single down. Is it going to be like Marlon Tuipulotu? I think Tillery kind of fits still into the role of maybe Omarr Norman-Lott, kind of a similar situation there. But I really, really like the upside that Omarr Norman-Lott brings and provides. I'm just glad the Chiefs are investing in this particular position. And that's not just a floor guy like a Derek Nottie type. I think that he can be a Tershawn Wharton. I think he really can be an upside of Tershawn Wharton, who we saw is getting 3 years, $54 million with Carolina. A little bit of an overpay, but still, like that's what the going rate is for interior defensive linemen who can give you some pass rush ability. So, yeah, man, I really like this pick. I called it going into it. I'm glad I actually got it right. Finally, a blind squirrel gets his nut every once in a while.
Now I wish my mic would turn off again.
That was a Mick Schaefer, wasn't it?
Yeah, it sure was. It's interesting. I'm not necessarily comparing these two guys as players, but the Omarr Norman-Lott pick is the one pick that I have questions about the process for. And look, they have 2 picks, 3 picks apart between him and Gillotte, 3 picks later, whatever it was. So I am curious how they ended up on those decisions, and was anybody else trying to trade up and snipe one of these guys?
Yeah, Brisco was about to start throwing stuff. Yeah, he is so mad. I've never seen this guy so mad. His hair is flustered. Man, he's never looked more like that guy from Stranger Things than, the cop from Stranger Things. Looks just like that. So that's my thoughts on Omarr Norman-Lott. Again, I really like the player. Sounds like Briscoe's going to have a little bit of pushback on that. Again, my pushback for anyone who thinks he was drafted too high, I'm not going to necessarily disagree with you too much. But again, I think if you go in the bucket methodology of, all right, we have a lot of other guys at different positions we can draft later. Brett Veach talked about it, how edge, there was a lot of guys they liked. There was deep class. Defensive tackle, they said not quite as much. If this was the final guy in that particular tier, I understand the thought process of, quote unquote, reaching for Omarr Norman-Lott. KC Tico says Norman-Lott looks a bit Dontari Poe. No, he's a lot lighter than Dontari Poe. I think they said 305, but he was about 290 at his pro day and combine. So he is quite a bit lighter than Dontari Poe. Ruben said Nolan was my guy. Yeah, but Nolan went 16 overall, 15 overall, a lot earlier. Lauren Shanks says will always be compared to Darius Alexander, who is still on the board, and that's completely fair. That is completely fair. Getting into the third pick, unless Brisco wants to give his final thoughts on Omarr.
Love to. I have now plugged my microphone into a different USB port. We'll see if that fixes it. I don't want to compare the guys as players, but the process of it gives me a smidge of a Breland Speaks flashback. Because the logic of Breland Speaks is what Sterling, who has now taken off his headphone and turned away from the camera, is what Sterling was just excited about, which is, well, the run kind of starts. The guys you like are kind of moving. You've only got one guy who you really like still, who's still on the board at this position of need, and you take him. You take him earlier than anybody else is planning on taking him, but you take him. Here's the other part of it, though. I will admit, if the Chiefs really thought they were the only team high on Omarr Norman-Lott in that range, you probably take Ashon Gillotte at 63, and you just let the board fall for a couple more picks. So I do think the Chiefs are probably right that Lott was not going to be on the board a whole lot longer, no pun intended, and they needed to address that position. You and I both took Derek Harmon in our mock last week because that's what we wanted to see. That was the biggest position of need. Obviously, he was off the board at Pittsburgh. The defensive tackle started even earlier. I'm not surprised by the way the board fell, and they needed help on the D line. But to your point, Sterling, now the one tech is Mike Pennell and Marlon Tuipulotu, and that's not a final answer for that group. But the Chiefs don't value that position very highly, and now they're kind of tripled down on the sort of pass rush first 3 tech kind of guy, being Jones, Tillery, and now Omarr Norman-Lott.
Yeah, they went 3 with the 3 tech. That's 9 tech.
Yeah,
that's tech
right.
9. Oh my gosh, we
that's
got
tech
there.
9. They did it.
Oh my gosh.
The Chiefs' new defensive front is a tech 9, where you have 3 D techs and George Karlaftis.
Have we make a shirt? I don't know, man.
Like
We're
that.
On one today. We're dumb, dude. We suck.
As long as my mic stays on, I'm happy. I don't even care if the content's that good.
All right, you're right. I think Gillotte probably would have pick at 63, and according to my understanding, it is Ashon Gillotte.
Yes, he said it that way in his little introductory clip. Ashon Gillotte. Apparently, he goes by Lotto.
Yeah, so Ashon Gillotte, very close to the delicious Italian dessert gelato. And I wish it was Gillette, because it could be the best a man can get, and you could get a picture of him on there. Again, I don't know why I'm so big into marketing T-shirts right now, but you can steal that one. I like this from a sense of this feels like a good floor pick now, right? There's a lot of questions with Josh Simmons because of injury, a lot of questions with Omarr Norman-Lott because of, is he too much of a tweener, right? Okay. But now they went into the floor aspect of this. We had a chance to talk with the head coach of Louisville. He was really high, kind of compared him a lot to George Karlaftis, who actually the head coach of Louisville, also coached at Purdue, right? So he had familiarity with both Karlaftis and Gillotte. So, yeah, I like this pick from a floor perspective. You know my thoughts on floor guys, right? I think you at least need a good chunk of them in your draft if you want to have some success. And the Chiefs have been really good with this particular type of edge rusher. They've been good with the Mike Danas and the Karlaftises while they've struggled on the Passignos and the
Candos and
the Candos.
BJ Thompson's not quite a fair one, later pick, and then obviously a heart thing. But yeah,
FAUOs.
The FAUOs. Yeah, exactly.
So, but that's more or less where I'm at. So they clearly understand how to develop these guys when they are these high motor, maybe not the bendiest dudes in the world, but kind of high floor players. So for that reason, almost that reason alone, I'm like, yeah, I really like this pick.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And even just kind of thinking about it now, I think it is development, but I think if you ask, like, well, why are those guys getting developed when Joshua Uche, obviously not a draft pick, but like never got on the field? I think that's kind of I would almost even challenge the idea that he's like a floor guy, in part because he could undercut his floor. He just might not be an NFL player. There's always at minimum, I think this might go all the way to the 5th overall pick randomly, not to pick on Mason Graham, right? But like, there's a 10% chance that any one of these guys just can't do it at the NFL level for one thing or another, you know what I mean? And then there's, as you go, that percentage rises. What I'm thinking about now after your Karlaftis and Dana comps stylistically are the right ones, right? I think the reason those guys have also developed, putting that in air quotes, is because they have earned and been trusted with playing time almost immediately. Even Dana being a later round pick, he got into that rotation pretty quickly considering where he was drafted from. George Karlaftis obviously has been playing a tremendous number of snaps since the second he got drafted here. I think what Gillotte shows is that even and this, I think, again, this might be kind of air quotes floor versus air quotes ceiling. I think if you said that Ashon Gillotte had to play 15 snaps in week 1, I'd say, well, I mean, like, the functional strength and NFL competition and all of that's going to be a real challenge. But I think stylistically he could do it because he could just crush the pocket from one side. Karlaftis is crushing from the other side. Chris Jones is crushing through the middle. Nobody's doing a whole lot of finesse sort of swim move stuff. But all of a sudden,
crushing a beer.
And Stu's crushing a beer. All of a sudden, it's the trash compactor from Star Wars for the opposing quarterback. Like, that's gonna be a nightmare to deal with if it is just closing in around you. The Chiefs have not gotten the sort of finesse, quick winning, even that quick first step. I mean, like, D Ford is the last guy who I think has really won that way. Because even like we didn't mention Charles Omenihu, different kind of player, but also strong and long arms and can do all of those things that Spags loves. This just makes sense at every level. Another position that we talked about a lot these last couple of weeks, where I thought investing in defensive end was going to continue to be important. But if you're going to tell me at this point, you can either give me a guy who fits the mold of the type of player that Steve Spagnuolo and Joe Cullen have had success with many times in recent years, or in the mold of the type of edge rushers that have never had success here, I will take the former. And I really like what Ashon Gillotte is bringing to the table.
Yeah, two comments I think are kind of hand in hand with what I thought prior to and now what I feel like I am post pick of this of Ashton. Ronson Trait says, I'd rather have taken Landon Jackson, but I'm assuming they felt safe with how well they knew Ashton's character. One, yes, I would have liked Landon Jackson. I was surprised they had Gillotte and not Landon Jackson at that spot. So I was with you, and that was prior to me almost, and maybe it's me because he's now a Chief. I'm talking myself into it, which I will fully acquiesce and say that could be completely possible because I'm going to root for every single Chief, whether or not I like them going into Kansas City. Now that they are a Chief, I'm going to try and find at least a positive way to talk about them because they're a Chief now, and I don't want to just sit here and be a Debbie Downer. Okay, Then Mizzou 19 says it's because they really value being stout against the run, which the Chiefs do at edge. That is for sure. Defensive tackle, maybe not as much. Edge, they do. And then 2, speed to power. Right or wrong, that's the Spags' preference. Could they incorporate guys like Uche? I wish they would sometimes. Yeah, I think we all wish they would like to get that, but the times they've tried maybe a little bendier dudes, again, the FAU guys coming to mind, the success has not quite been there. Again, I've kind of been on record saying I think this is FAU's year. I'm not saying he's going to be a stud, but I do expect a large step forward. He's 23. He is 6 months older than Gillotte. Like FAU is still really darn young. Look at the guys and the ages of dudes getting drafted this year. FAU, if he was in this draft class, you'd be like, oh yeah, look, he's not old. He would not be considered an old player, which is pretty wild to think about also because of NIL and COVID year and all that. It just doesn't. Point still remains. I'm not giving up on FAU just yet, but
it's going to be fascinating to see how the rotation comes together, though, man. I think we're going to here's what I will say. I'm also not like giving up on FAU, but it could be over by week 3. Like it could be Kingsley territory. If you tell me that George Karlaftis is playing 90% of the snaps, Charles Omenihu, who's playing starter snaps this year, it's a contract year for him and he's healthy. Mike Dana's playing a lot of snaps. If you tell me you get down to DE4 and Steve Spagnuolo is trying to figure out who he wants out there on third down, the guy who's going to consistently crush the pocket but maybe not win super fast, and a rookie Gillotte, which is still projecting, or Felix, who's kind of a dice roll, maybe he can win this kind of unique way compared to the rest of your defensive line, wouldn't surprise me to see Spags favoring the guy that he's like maybe a little more comfortable with. Now, Felix has the advantage of having been here for quite a while now, so he should win that job, but this makes it clear to me that it's not a shoe-in for him.
Yeah. All righty. Nohl Williams, 3rd round, pick 85. He's going to have a lot of expectations because this is basically the Joe Thuney trade-up pick for Nohl. So a lot of expectations for Nohl Williams. But I'd been talking about how I thought cornerback was one of the more underrated positions of need for Kansas City. And I'd been talking about how that 5th, 6th, 7th round cornerback starting to dry up a little bit. They hit on a lot of 5th, 6th, 7th round guys. The Chiefs did. I mean, they've a lot of late rounders, but it felt like that had dried up just a little bit in recent years, right? And with Kamal Haddon being done before pretty quickly, if he hits, they're not bringing in Christian Fulton, but he doesn't. And Jalen Watson now has more injuries. Joshua Williams didn't really improve ever. And then Nazi, post-injury, has not been the same guy. So they brought in Christian Fulton. But this is the last year of Watson and Williams.
Yep.
Maybe one comes back. Maybe both comes back. But who knows? So you needed to have some investment here. And I think a fairly sizable one. I'm not saying a first rounder, but I wanted to see, more than just a flyer. Nohl Williams isn't just a flyer. And he brings, again, a different flavor to the secondary than a lot of these other guys. Now, he talked about in his presser, you got to stop the run in the NFL and the Spags and don't give him an inch. But he led the FBS in interceptions, 7 last year, 14 in his college career. Now, of course, some of those are overthrows and all this stuff. I get it. But still, you have a nose for the ball. The Chiefs don't traditionally go after guys in the secondary who get a lot of interceptions. They let guys who stay in your hip pocket. They let guys, as great as McDuffie is, the whole knock was he doesn't get interceptions. That's like the whole thing. Javarius Ward. I loved Javarius Ward. He couldn't find the ball, right? He didn't care about it. He just cared about making sure it was incomplete. L'Jarius Sneed, to an extent, he was more of your playmaker, but a lot of that was because of what he could do blitzing. This is different. I like Nohl Williams. I like the length. I like the 6-foot size. This to me, actually, I don't know if best value is the right word because you did trade a pick to go up and get him.
Yeah.
But getting him where you did, man, I am very intrigued by Nohl Williams. If you told me he was the starter alongside Fulton with McDuffie in the nickel to start the season, I would not be shocked.
I don't know if I'd be shocked. I might be a little bit surprised, but I also expect him to play as a rookie. And I think at this point, you probably expect him to play quite a bit in 2026, which again, like I don't want to get too caught up in because you're right. It's a little bit of a more premium investment than the non-McDuffie picks who we've talked about over the years at the cornerback position. But also, they're like the idea that, oh no, the 85th overall pick in the draft is going to be a starter in 2 years is not a healthy presupposition. But it is what the Chiefs have earned to this point. It is the Chiefs' reputation developing defensive backs. And I think every Chiefs fan who's been paying attention the last several years has to look at Nohl Williams and completely see it, right? You see the fit, you see the vision. And the thing for me now, going back to kind of your like zooming out view, not necessarily as much about Williams the player, but about the Chiefs cornerback strategy and where they go from here. They pick up the 5th-year option on Karlaftis and McDuffie today. I think they're going to get a long-term deal done with McDuffie sooner rather than later, but maybe it's going to be a little bit later, right? Whatever it is. I fully anticipate McDuffie's next contract will be with the Chiefs. He'll be here for a very long time. You got 2 years for Christian Fulton to start on the outside. You can kick McDuffie into the slot as long as you have passable outside corner play. Well, now you have Jalen Watson along with Christian Fulton. That's why I love the Fulton signing so much. We talked about it when that deal happened. Not only do you now have a plan for when Jalen Watson is most likely gone next year, and then I think Williams and likely Nazi as well. I think they're going to keep doing this. They're going to continue to churn that, especially that second and third cornerback spot. You're not paying both of them. That was trading L'Jarius Sneed. Obviously, the knee was part of it, but the reason they were trading L'Jarius Sneed in part was because they knew they had Trent McDuffie to pay, and they were happy to eventually pay Trent McDuffie. So they continue to kind of like build out the horizontal depth chart, right? And you have this succession plan where I can see a view, not a crystal clear view, but I could give you a view of the Chiefs cornerback room in 2027 or 2028 right now, kind of building around Trent McDuffie and Nohl Williams. Again, no guarantee that he is ultimately that guy, but this is a position that they ought to draft at every single year. They've been really good at finding those guys. Even with the Kamal Haddon whiff, their batting average is remarkable when it comes to finding talent at value in the defensive backfield. Rose-colored glasses, I'm acknowledging. I fully expect them to be doing it again with Nohl Williams.
Yeah, that was one of my, again, the draft makes it a little different, but overall, I really love this Nohl Williams pick. Yep. Round 4, pick 133, Jalen Royals, wide receiver. This is one I didn't have a super strong feeling on, besides, again, the big board talking about what great value this was for Kansas City. I still think he needs to be number 85 for 85 Royals. I laughed and said, hey, how about 15 Royals? They won a World Series in 15, right? He can have 15.
Sure, yeah. Anybody else using that one?
Anyone else wearing number 15? Yeah,
like Cairo Santos, who had that?
Go to Patrick. Hey, Patrick. So, yeah, this is a rookie. He's going to need your number.
Paying homage. You own Pat, you own part of the team. I mean, you got to want that marketing, right?
What's funny is I think, according to the Arrowhead Addict chat, Royals, even a lot of our mock drafts, that was a guy that they always wanted the Chiefs to get. Yeah. So I'm really happy for a lot of guys like Weston Brewster in the chat. Jalen Royals can ball. Slayman Sammy Joe Royals was a steal. Ruben Royals good pick. Yeah, like it was funny. Arrowhead Addict, all the listeners and everyone was talking about Jalen Royals, and so I'm excited, especially for you guys, that he was here to KC. And as you guys talked about, if he would have gone 66, I think some of you guys would have been pretty thrilled, just where a lot of us, I think we had to pick Royals in some of these mock drafts. And as Weston also points out, he tore up Maxwell Harrison at the Senior Bowl, who was a first rounder, which is funny because some Bills fans tried dunking on the Chiefs for Royals when Royals actually cooked Harrison. But I think it was Jalen Milroe throwing the ball and decided that, hey, what if I just don't throw it anywhere near the wide open receiver? And Bills fans were like, see, incompletion. And I'm like, maybe you guys are cornerbacks. An overthrow and the cornerback is celebrating. So congrats, Bills fans. Yeah, you nailed it.
This is where I admit, I'd done my like breathe and speaks mention early on and all of that, right? If I just looked over at my little rundown here and I saw Jalen Royals at 63 and Omarr Norman-Lott at 133, I'd be just as happy. I really, you could sell me on the Chiefs fell in love with Jalen Royals and took him genuinely 60 picks earlier. I'm like, yeah, that makes 100% sense. Again, a hat tip over to the guys that do the draft guide for KC Sports Network. I have nothing to do with that. That is so far above my pay grade. But they are, I think they had like 10 to 15 first round grades. This is not something where they give 32 first and 32 seconds and 32 thirds. They had a second-round grade on Jalen Royals. And the thing about him that makes me so happy in a way that I truly did not anticipate being after this draft is I think he's your X receiver. I think you got one. I think he's on the roster now. It doesn't just have to be I can't remember who coined the term like sacrificial X. It doesn't have to be Justin Watson. Somebody national said that. It's not about Justin Watson, but I'm making it about Justin Watson now. It was about, no offense, a much better player if memory serves. But it doesn't have to be MVS or whatever. Somebody just over there trying to be on the other side of the field, get a little bit of coverage and run down field. I think you see with Jalen Royals, you see him running routes. You see him with the ball in his hands. I think he looks like an NFL player. I know that's like really reductive. That was also my analysis on Derek Harmon, by the way. Like that's what it got down to. It's like, man, I'm watching this guy and I'm having a really hard time seeing him fail. I'm having a really hard time seeing him not find a role. If Jalen Royals is this team's number 3 wide receiver in 2026, 7, and 8 or whatever, this pick is a home run. If he's anything above that, it's a grand slam. And I'm not really worried. I know he and Rashee Rice have some similar body types. I think they're going to do different things. And I think it seems like Royals should be able to do a lot of different things in this offense. But the biggest thing I think they need him to be is a guy who can go line up on the X and not just demand also that Travis Kelce is the only guy over there, or that it's a player who you're just not scaring defenses with. If Royals can be competent to really nice, if he's in that little window, this pick is fantastic for what it will do for Rashee Rice and for Xavier Worthy. Plus, I'll mention 2 more years on Rashee Rice's contract. It feels wild. It doesn't quite make sense. He feels like he just got here. We've barely seen him play any games, right? Because we didn't see much last year. But continuing to dig in that wide receiver position, I think it makes a ton of sense, and I think Royals is a good fit.
Yeah, 100% agree. I think we've brought the Rashee Rice contract for a little bit now. I mean, in 2027, I think the only guy under contract is Xavier Worthy. So it made sense to bolster that again. Yeah, I'm excited to see Jalen Royals. And oh, by the way, if he does get 85, that is going to be the hottest selling rookie jersey of all time. Royals 85 will be legendary, whether he's good or not. It's going to be hilarious. Look on the NFL, the book. Who was the number 1, ranked rookie jersey this year? Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter, Cam Ward? No. It's 4th rounder from Kansas City. Huh. Royals. He had 400 yards this year. What
85 Royals would be really, really good. I hope he does that.
Yeah, but yeah, I like this pick. I like them taking wide receivers. Again, very few picks that I really had major issues with. I think it was hard to find major issues with a lot of these picks. I don't want to try and be a homer, but you look at a lot of even, national talking points. It was a lot of Chiefs yet again in late rounds found value.
Yep.
Jeffrey Bassa,
I think.
Bassa.
We went Bassa.
Bassa, linebacker from Oregon. He is gonna be supposed to be the coverage backer, off-ball linebacker. That's a little bit.
We talked about this like two weeks ago in one of our mocks. I felt so good when this pick came down.
The concern I have, you had the Breland Speaks concern.
Yeah,
I have the Dorian O'Daniel.
Yeah, I love Dorian O'Daniel. I was sure he was gonna be good.
Because you also look at like their combine numbers and all this stuff. It's like eerily similar, like kind of creepy. I always said like Sky Moore and Deontay Johnson had like very similar numbers. Yeah. They had very different careers. At least one guy doesn't get in trouble for being an AH. One guy just gets in trouble for not playing wide receiver very well.
Two guys who feel like they should both be on the Cleveland Browns at this point.
Yeah. So I have no issue with this pick because of where it's at. Again, a coverage linebacker was a position of need for Kansas City. I imagine they carry 5 linebackers now this year. I know a lot of times it can be 4, but Jack Conkrin's getting paid a good chunk of change to be your special teamer. Obviously, I think Jeffrey can play special teams as well. I think it's a fine pick. I'm not going to sit here and jump and go crazy over it, but I think it's a fine pick. At worst, I think you have a really good special teamer. At best, I think you have a coverage linebacker once Drew Tranquill we'd imagine this is his last year in KC. I know he has 2 years left on his contract. The Chiefs can get out of that and save $6 million against the cap after this season. Wouldn't be shocked if they move on so that we're not paying both Bolton and Drew Tranquill top-end money, or at least one guy top-end money, one above-average money. I think the hope is that he could be your Tranquill replacement.
And look, if every draft pick was good and every player went where they were supposed to go, this would all be very boring and very easy. So I think all we can really judge right now is the process. But if you tell me I'm getting to pick a type of linebacker down there in the 150 range, that's the guy for me. Where I wanted there to be somebody that has that coverage first profile, who has some coverage athleticism to potentially be there and essentially kind of a battery with Nick Bolton for the next couple of years as you make that work, not just on the field, but also financially. The other thing, this is Leo Chanel's contract year. Very different player and a different type of guy altogether. But when you look at this being last year for Tranquill, there needed to be a decision on Chanel. You're wondering what Jack Cochran's going to do before he's maybe trying to hit the market, or maybe he's got a vision in this defense, but I don't know that I see it necessarily, at least not compared to some of the more athletic players right now. They're already paying Bolton. You needed to be able to dip in there. Again, I am often a proponent of not taking linebackers, particularly early. I'd like to have guys who do have some of those specialized skill sets, and you hope they don't get exposed, right? And obviously, I mean, you could argue Nick Bolton has a specialized skill set, a big specialized skill set, but like that's always kind of the leverage game you're playing there. So I think this pick makes a lot of sense. I also think it's kind of interesting. Tranquill was already a little bit of a step in this direction, but for the most part, the Chiefs have preferred safeties who play like linebackers rather than linebackers who play like safeties, where Bassa is a converted safety. Many times you get those sort of, I wasn't quite big enough to play linebacker, so now Dan Sorensen is a Chiefs legend. Or even guys like Tyrann Mathieu or box safety types that really can thump. The Chiefs have had a lot of guys who can although they're Justin Reed, not that he was ever playing like a linebacker, but when you find that physicality, I think a lot of times the Chiefs have stayed agile on defense by having thumping linebackers. I think it's kind of thumping safeties. I think now it's kind of interesting to have a coverage backer who's going to be here for a few years, try to figure out that role.
Before we get to pick number 7, this is a really interesting question. Jeremy Goden. I know everyone is saying that we had a great draft. What does that mean in an all-time bad draft class? Now, again, I know my initial pushback is going to be, we haven't seen him play yet, so for all we know, the draft class could turn out and be great. We've seen that before where you think it's a bad draft class, ends up being good. Good draft class ends up being bad. But again, from what we at least expect, that is a good call. This was not a great draft. There were, I think, 2 players that were great. I think, not to say what I'm saying, but what I think a lot of people are saying, Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter.
Bit of a tier of their own, yep.
I think those 2 were great. I think Cam Ward was the best of the bad quarterback room. I do think there is some questions with the tackles in their arm length, because it does sound like, everyone's saying they have short arms, but then we've now heard a lot of people say they probably just messed up at
the combine measurements are weird, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So, I don't know, man. So that's a great question. It's a good call. I think there's a lot of solid players in this year's draft.
I think a lot of that conversation was about the very, very top. How sort of shallow. There wasn't an elite quarterback prospect, and there were 2 like semi-elite and 1 incredibly unique overall prospects.
Yeah, I think it was the lack of top end talent. While I do think there was a lot of solid mid range, but I think that's a good question, Jeremy. I like that. That's fun. Sandman says the Chiefs cannot develop O tackles is a popular narrative with local media. As being a member of the local media, I also push this narrative because I think it's true. So,
they haven't really done it. So I mean, I get it.
It took the last one was Eric Fisher, and it took him 5 years. I mean, they ain't giving Josh Simmons 5 years.
No,
they ain't giving Kingsley Suamataia five games.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's wrong.
That's Joe Tooney replacement Kingsley Suamataia to you.
Interior offensive line, they've been pretty good. I'll have no.
They also drafted 2 dudes who looked like NFL players the moment they arrived in St. Joseph, Missouri. So that happened. Well,
shockingly, the rugby players the pickleball players they drafted didn't turn out that well. But it's even the Patriots could draft lacrosse players apparently.
True.
Chris Hogan.
True.
Yeah, that was my point though. I do think they can't develop tackles. Hopefully they prove me wrong. I hope they prove me wrong. All right, final pick, Brashard
I hope
Smith.
Josh Simmons proves you/them wrong. Honestly,
I hope he does
I
too.
think more about him, the player. I hear you. I'm not here to push back on Stu. I'm here to say I think Josh Simmons has a bigger bag of tools to work with than anybody they've had in a while.
Yeah, why are you looking at his tools? No,
Scouting process, baby. I gotta see this. I gotta see that tool. What? Those tools.
I'm rooting for Simmons. Rooting hard for Simmons. All right, final guy, Brashard Smith, running back at SMU. Again, a guy that was supposed to go in about the 5th round. I had a take today on air that I think of these players, I think the first one to make a Pro Bowl or an All-Pro is Smith. As a returner, first and foremost. Okay. But I think he's going to be a return stud.
I think that's responsible. That's reasonable, I think.
I think he's going to be a really good special teamer with also the first real running back since Damian Williams who has some that next gear. He's a good pass catcher. Pass pro needs a lot of work because he was a wide receiver who transitioned into a running back. So that is something to keep in mind. We all know how the Chiefs basically won't play guys if they can't pass pro. Something to keep in mind here. But the athleticism and the speed and even some of the vision is pretty tantalizing with Brashard Smith. I'm ready to get hurt. Like I'm ready to buy into Smith being like a guy. I'm not saying he's like Saquon or like a top end guy, but I'm ready to say that he can be, oh man, obviously Damian Williams, but I'm hoping like 90% of Devon Achane. Like, can he be a guy who you're like, wow, he's getting like 5 yards a carry?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying he's going to get 20 carries a game, but in 9 or 10 carries, can he get you 60 yards? And can that be consistent? Can one of those be a 20-yard or 15-yard rush that makes the defense go, oh, well, that's different. We have to respect the run now, which then in turns allows Patrick to have a little more opportunity to push the ball down the field. So, yeah, I'm ready to get hurt. He can run outside. Actually fits well with what Jalen Moore did with San Fran. If they can run to the outside, right? Do a little bit of that, get him out in space. Yeah, man. I don't always like getting excited about late round running backs because I feel like that's just a losing battle.
It's a winning battle. No, it's a good battle.
But I'm in this battle.
Yeah, get in on this battle. I'm with you. Front lines. I don't know about Pro Bowl, All Pro, whatever. But as a returner, I think that's a good little tweak on that take. I've seen a couple of comment comparisons here of Percy Harvin to Anthony Thomas. Let me just combine those two guys and give you Dexter McCluster. How about that? Like that's kind of where my head is at, but like in a positive way, right? Expectations are a big deal, and draft spot is a big deal. But we did our last mock, and you and I both got kind of shut out of the running back game. And I think we kind of both left that mock exercise thing, and that 133 was probably the floor at running back. But if you told me, hey man, you can have Devin Neal or whoever you want at 133 or Jalen Royals, I would have run that card out there for Jalen Royals just like the Chiefs did. So what I think the Chiefs did, honestly, and this was, look, again, I'm sitting next to Kent Swanson and Matt Lane throughout day 3, and they're just like sweating. They're saying names I've never heard before, and they're having really strong opinions about like running back 25, right? As that board was ticking away, it was like, all right, well, the local guys are out there. Martinez is out there, maybe Brashard Smith. And it seems like the Martinez thing might have a couple other, might be a little off field, sprinkle of some stuff there. So we're putting him out of it. All right, well, here go the local guys. Here goes the rest of the running back group. Okay, so the Chiefs are going to take a running back. It's Jalen Royals. All right, it's Jeffrey Bassa. All right, what's going on? When they traded up and Brashard Smith was on the board, I thought, well, this is, the Chiefs hadn't really done this yet, or the guy who we thought they were moving up for was the pick. But sitting there going, well, if they just take Brashard Smith here, I think they've like checked all of the boxes. And then with the 228th pick, Brashard Smith, it makes total sense to me. I think you needed a young player in that room. I think you needed a rookie contract in that room, just thinking long-term team building and all of that. And I think you needed that skill set in that room. The only guy who might be a smidge overlapping with Brashard Smith, I guess, would be Elijah Mitchell. And that's an if and a maybe and a healthy and a veteran and a training camp and all of that kind of stuff. You need redundancies at running back as much as you need redundancies anywhere in the sport, maybe more than you need them anywhere else in the sport, because it is a spot of attrition. So in a world where like Omarion Hampton might have been in the mix if he was available, right? Like, or Travion Henderson was making my heart pound at 32 and not in a fun way. It's like, oh man, they had to visit. I don't know. He just nice player.
I don't know, Brisco.
I don't know, Stu. Not where I'd put those picks. You get to that point where now you leave with Brashard Smith and you go, like, no, that'll do. I know he won't have the hype of any running back that would have taken in the first round or the second or the third or whatever, but he's another guy in that mix where, and like Ruben says, not sold on Mitchell. Totally fine. You don't need to be. I'm not sure I'm sold on him, but I like that he's in the room, and I like what the St. Joe running back room is going to look like now. Much, much, much better than I did without that injection of a young, quick rookie like Brashard Smith.
So overall, really enjoyed the draft class. Again, do I think there's a lot of all pros and Pro Bowls in this, group's future? I don't know. I think the obvious one would be if Josh Simmons is healthy and returns to form. I think that's the obvious one. Again, I told you, I think my hot take is I could see Brashard Smith getting a Pro Bowl nod or an all-pro as a returner, as a special teamer. I think that might be my fun, like, out on a limb take there.
You and Nohl Williams might both be back there for like the opening kickoff of the 2025 season. I guess not of the season, but for the Chiefs season.
So again, overall, I think there's going to be a lot of rotational players in this draft, a good chunk of complementary players, which I'm happy with. So overall, I'm happy. Nothing drastic. There's no Raiders. There is no, who was Clelin Ferrell. There was nothing where you're like, well, I don't even see the vision here. I don't know what you're doing. I think next week we should do it since we're almost out of time. Next week, let's go through the draft in more detail and talk about, I like what Lauren Shank says, which draft pick has the hardest road to make in the 53, which one we think is all pro, or what's the rank 1 through 7 your favorite draft pick. We'll get in a little more detail next week because we got to give you guys something over the offseason, or else we can't give you it all at once. Okay,
those are all good questions.
We're classy.
We did 57 honest. Well, you did 57 honest minutes. I did like 53 honest minutes, but my mic didn't cut out after I moved this into the USB 3.0 plug. So Josh has learned a lesson about his computer today.
So we'll do that next week. I appreciate everyone hanging out with us. If you want to bounce because we're done talking Chiefs, that's okay.
Oh, yeah. I got to know your birthday story. Holy bleep. Yeah, we're going long. Let's go.
Yeah. So there's a couple of just silly things I wanted to talk about now that the show is over. We did our work. Appreciate everyone for hanging out, talking Chiefs. Now's the nonsense, about 5 minutes of nonsense. And we'll talk a lot more Chiefs on Friday, myself with Adam Best, OG Hour on Thursday. Kingdom Queens on Wednesday, and then obviously Brisco and myself back on Tuesday. So I went to a concert on Friday. Kenny Wayne Shepherd, love Kenny Wayne Shepherd blues.
And you went in a G-string and a toothbrush, you said?
No, I did not go in that. I know it's you might think I did. It's not. It's something that sounds like me too. So I get the confusion.
I misunderstood.
So Kenny Wayne Shepherd is a blues singer, been around for a while. Blue on Black, probably the most famous song, but great blues musician. He had a new album.
Kenny
Wayne Shepherd. Oh. And he brought a guy named Bobby Rush. Bobby Rush is a old blues singer, been around a long time. I'm talking a long time because he's 91 years old. Not kidding, not hyperbolic.
He won his first Grammy at the age of 83.
Yeah, 91 years old. I would have thought he was in his 70s. He comes on stage, moving well, harmonica, kind of a cool red crushed jacket, white pants, mustache. Awesome. Doing a lot of hip thrusts on stage, moving great for a 91-year-old. And then he starts singing a song. And let me just give you some lyrics.
Yeah, man. I'd love to know. Can you give me the title so I can go ahead and pre-save this on Spotify?
You'll get it. I'm going to take you out in the dark. We're going to have some fun out in the park. Where I'm going, you don't have to pack too much. All you have to bring, little girl, is a G-string and a toothbrush.
Dental hygiene's important.
Man.
And I guess he's saying you could floss with the G-string?
That's probably what it is.
He's just a real big fan of enamel.
9 out of 10 is approve. The 10th is a prude. That's what it is. Yeah.
What is the name of this song?
G-string. Kenny Wayne Shepherd
man,
and
I don't want to
Bobby
Google
Rush.
Bobby Rush G-string.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know what's going to come up.
Yeah. Very fun, though. Very fun. Who was that? No, it was a great time. Love the concert. But imagine that. You see a 91-year-old come on stage, you're having fun, and he all of a sudden gets down and goes, all you need, baby girl, is a G-string and a toothbrush.
And it sounds like he was dressed like you. One of you had to change.
Yeah, one of us had to change, and it's not going to be me. No, but that was a lot of fun. And then I went to Blue Hawk. If you've not been to Blue Hawk, South KC, 159th to 161st, Blue Hawk, Advent Health Sports Park. They have like AAU basketball, hockey, but they also have like bowling and this thing called Crazy Darts and great beer. And they have Papa Shot, where my right arm is very tired. You turn 31 and your right arm in Papa Shot looks like I've been doing a workout my entire life. My forearm is still on fire.
You've got a new respect for LeBron. He's like a decade older than you, flying through the sky. You pop a shot for 30 minutes. I think I need Tommy John.
LeBron could not do what I did in Papa Shot. I would like to see LeBron try.
I would.
Yeah, he would flop. He'd flop.
Yeah.
Oh, the ball hit me.
That's the take you want. That's the take you want to go off with.
No, maybe.
Just sing me just a little bit more of that Bobby Rush.
But I rode a zip line around the place. It was fun.
That's fun.
I recommend Blue Hawk. It was fun. I'll do it.
Never been.
I recommend it.
You want to go?
And Kenny Wayne Shepherd and Bobby Rush. Yeah.
I'll meet you over there.
Thanks for listening to our nonsense at the very end. I know you guys don't care about it, but Brisco kind of cares, and Richard really wishes we would have wrapped up 5 minutes ago. Give us a like or review, 5-star, wherever you get your podcast, wherever finer podcasts are found. Brisco's going to hop on with KCSN, which is why he wore that instead of the Arrowhead Addict podcast sweater today.
You know I would love one of those. It just hasn't gotten here yet.
Yeah, just
maybe get some cardigans for us, some of the smoking jackets. Tuesdays with Stu smoking jackets, some robes maybe.
Okay, Richard, this is your new thing.
Don't give that to Richard. Don't make Richard do that. You do that.
He likes having a lot on his plate.
Yeah, that's what he says
it.
after every show wins. All right, thanks, guys. Good show. I wish Sterling would tell me to do more work for him.
So if you want to do more work for us, Richard, it'd be lovely. We'd appreciate the smoking jackets for Stu's Day. Until next time, I love this Chiefs draft. We're out of here.
Whoa.